Who is going to win the Big 12 championship? Oh, the picture didn't get too much clearer, right? If we ended today, Oklahoma State and Texas are going to square off in the Big 12 title. But let me read to you the amount of teams that are still in the hunt. Iowa State, West Virginia, Kansas State, Oklahoma, Kansas, Oklahoma State, and Texas. That's 7. Of the 14 teams, we have 3 weeks to go. 7 teams are still in the hunt. Only one of those teams, the Texas Longhorns, can still make the college football playoff. If they go undefeated the rest of the way, win the Big 12 championship, finish at 12-1, they have at least a shot of being in that 4. Again, season ends today. The team that lost 33-7 to South Alabama, Oklahoma State, is in the Big 12 championship. Kansas right there breathing down Oklahoma State's neck. OU right there after a loss to Oklahoma State's really going to need some help, though they have that tiebreaker against Texas. So if UT drops a game, OU has a tiebreaker there. But here's an even wilder scenario. Bear with me here. If Oklahoma State loses another game, they've already lost 1 game in conference play earlier this season. That was a 3-point make it. Sorry. They lost 1 game earlier this season, a 20. Geez. Wow. A 7-point loss to Iowa State on the road. So the tiebreaker held by Iowa State there. What does that do? It complicates a lot of things. Because now if Oklahoma State drops a game, you see them at 5-2, and then say Kansas is 5-2, and then Iowa State's 5-2, and then Oklahoma's 5-2, and Kansas has a win against Iowa State. Iowa State has a win against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State has a win against Kansas. We could bury ourselves into a Big 12 5-way tie, 4-way tie, 3-way tie. And I know that some of these teams play each other, so that's where things get complex. For Oklahoma State down the road here, told you earlier in the season they got a very easy slate. They're going to beat UCF. They have 3 of the newbies coming up. They're going to beat UCF. They're going to beat Houston. They're going to beat BYU. I think Oklahoma State has punched its ticket to the Big 12 championship. They are going to Arlington. We know one of the teams, and it's Oklahoma State. Am I jinxing you? Maybe a bit. That loss earlier this season by 7 points to Iowa State, coming off a 33-7 loss to South Alabama. Is that going to come back to bite you? I guess, but if you just run the table, control your destiny, there's no way it can, mathematically. Texas, this is brutal, guys. I think we know the one team. Oklahoma State. We need Texas to lose to either TCU, Iowa State, or Texas Tech. They'll be favored in all of those. Iowa State coming off a loss against Kansas, that game in Ames. That Texas Tech game's at night at DKR. They'll be favored in all 3 of those. The one saving grace to this, couple of saving graces actually. TCU is that team that just when they suck and you don't, they'll beat you. Look at Baylor. They had just fired Gary Patterson and kept Baylor out of the college football playoff in 2021. Then Texas goes to Iowa State. A game in Ames is never easy. It's at least going to be close. I like Rocco Beck. I like the Iowa State defense. Malik Murphy struggled this week. Slant route. Buddy would throw it 6 yards short, spike it in the ground, 6 yards behind a wide receiver. Iowa State's not going to let you get away with that, especially not in Ames. Then Texas Tech, which they're reeling, but not as much as TCU. Right? Those are the miracle games. Feels like Iowa State is the best shot of anybody here. And in that scenario, there are ways in which one of these teams, a Kansas can't, because if Texas has 2 losses, Kansas, Texas still has the tiebreaker. But then again, if Iowa State has 2 losses with a win against Texas, they have the tiebreaker. But Kansas has the tiebreaker over Iowa State. So what we get into is a very complex scenario in which I cannot confidently tell you who is going to go to Arlington here if Texas drops a game. Who is going to go to Arlington here if Oklahoma State drops the game? The good thing for Oklahoma State is the only team that holds a tiebreaker over them is Iowa State. Only one team holds a tiebreaker over them. If they lose to Houston, UCF, or BYU, none of those teams are in the running for a Big 12 championship. That helps them mightily. It'd be a bad loss, sure, but a 2-loss team is likely going to get to Arlington. So all they would have to hope for is that Iowa State would lose to Texas, at which point they would have a shot at still going to the title game. You hear how complex this is? Then there's a West Virginia. If West Virginia wins out, one of their losses, again, this is helpful, is to Houston, who's not in this hunt. The loss to Oklahoma State puts them at a disadvantage, but West Virginia doesn't play Texas. So if Texas has 2 losses, technically they can get in over UT. Now that's saying West Virginia still has to beat Oklahoma on the road. Baylor on the road, Cincinnati at home. Baylor and Cincinnati, not an issue, but Oklahoma next week, that's tough. Again, you piece together for a team like Oklahoma at 4-2, how they can go undefeated the rest of the way against West Virginia, BYU, and TCU and still miss Arlington or make it to, baffled. It's going to take another couple of weeks to figure out where this thing's going to go, but I'll break down all the scenarios the rest of this week on Locked On Big 12. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. I missed you guys on Friday. I don't like days where I don't release an episode. I feel like I don't talk to you guys. It makes me sad. I love talking to you guys. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.